by Robert E. DiNardo. If you would take a moment now to be sure to silence your telephone buzzers, light up instruments, whatever, so that it doesn't disturb the audience or the actors. After reading, we would welcome any comments you have of a constructive nature about the play or about the actors. And I think that's about it. We're ready to begin now. Thank you. There will be a 5-minute intermission between acts.
Protected by Robert E. DiNardo. This is the artist Leon's room. This is a small, isolated section of a park with 2 park benches. There is another bench upstage behind some bushes. This area also serves as a Times Square bar near the end of the play. This is in Jean B's room. It is a small room with bookcases and books, a winged back chair, and a small table with a lamp. Act 1, Scene 1. A church bell tolls several times, followed by a handheld bell rung 10 times.
She never varied the sound of that bell. It was always 10 rings, no more, no less. Twice a day. I listened to it for 7 years before I became aware of her consistent but decidedly limited sense of rhythm. Yet, it was my sense of rhythm she admired most. Well, it was one of the things. I thought it was my mind until she started saying whenever I was in earshot, "Wonderful sense of rhythm," and pointing in my direction. All I was doing was playing the piano according to the required tempos and hitting the designated notes. Could that be considered a sense of rhythm? She thought so, and I liked the idea that she thought so. Being spoken of as someone with a talent of sorts, especially in her eyes, gave me a certain position, and I suppose a certain amount of protection. Even if at the same time I had no idea that I was in real need of protection. Her cloak served its purpose for 7 years, and it was that 8th year when everything changed. I hated her, the new one, and that's what we called her, the new one. And I know that I was more than justified in my hatred, though no one agreed with me at the time.
Sister Regina Ange appears in front of a desk, the large double-paned window behind her. She wears a classic nun's habit.
He was the quintessential pet. Polite, well-liked, academically sound, only mildly gifted musically, with a sense of rhythm that our Mother Superior, who adored him, attempted to turn into a legend. He was not what I expected to see, not what I had prayed for. No one warned me about him.
Nothing prepared me for what was about to happen. It all began with the names.
I am Sister Regina Ange. That's Ange, not Ange, Ange.
We all
Understood?
got it right. We all got it right. Sister Regina Ange. No problem. But why did she insist on calling me
Eugenio.
in that voice when everyone else called me,
Jean.
or Eugene? All the other nuns called me,
Eugene.
or Mr. Bonacorso.
But the records say Eugenio. That's a Eugenio in my book.
She was determined to change things.
And things should be kept as they were intended.
But my own mother called me Jean, and so did my friends.
I was opposed to change. And there I was confronted with it on the very first day I started teaching. What was God telling me?
What kind of God was it that made her a nun?
The sin of impurity always has its consequences.
The lectures were delivered daily,
Whether it be a mark on your immortal soul,
always immediately after lunch,
which can only be removed by the sacrament of confession,
as prescribed by the curriculum.
and an act of penance.
How many appetites would have been ruined if the lectures were given before lunch?
Now, can anyone tell me some of the other consequences that can result from an act of impurity? Who else might suffer?
Not one hand was raised.
Eugenio, have you no idea who might suffer from an act of impurity?
To this day, I can still hear the sound of the sudden intake of breath made by the two girls sitting nearby.
Does one have to commit a sin of impurity to suffer from it?
I noticed that no one was looking at me.
Well, Eugenio?
Well, no, sister, I can't think of anyone else who might suffer, unless you mean the sorrow God feels whenever a sin of any kind is committed.
Sit down, Eugenio.
Something was being directed at me by more than one person in that room, and I had absolutely no idea what it was.
So remember, it is always the children who suffer the most.
And I had no idea how to find out what it was. That desperate silence gave me the darkest feeling that my young body had ever experienced.
Most of you, possibly all of you, take your neighborhood for granted.
And more lectures followed.
Your families, your homes, the people who surround you.
No, she was right. We never gave the neighborhood a thought. Oh, but we knew we had a reputation for...
Being tough is not the only thing that distinguishes this neighborhood. So, Eugenio, tell us why there are no Negroes here in St. Monica's Parish.
There were no sudden intakes of breath this time. Only a palpable stillness that made the room look like an enormous photograph.
Well, Eugenio?
Oh, I said the first thing that came to mind. Suppose there are no colored people here at St. Monica's because they're not Catholics.
I'm not talking about our church, Eugenio. I mean the neighborhood. We, after all, have Protestant churches nearby, unfortunately.
Well, then I suppose Negroes don't want to live here.
No, Eugenio. Negroes don't live here because they're not allowed to live here.
Really? That's what I said. And with that degree of incredulity. Really?
Yes. Really.
In that instant, following the uttering of those two words, I realized she hated me. And still, I didn't know why.
There were some things about his meticulously pressed, gleaming white shirts combined with that pervasive smell of garlic that irked me.
No. After 5 months of her insidious teaching methods, I worked up the courage to ask the nun who taught me how to play the piano why Sister Regina, Ange, didn't like me.
They had to be told, each and every one of them, what the world is really like.
I was certain my music teacher, the nun I liked the most, would ask why I thought she didn't like me, because she had never seen Ange in action in the classroom.
They were young, protected, with no experience of the world beyond their classrooms.
At least I thought she had never seen her in action, but all she said was, oh, Eugene, just because we all wear the same religious habits doesn't mean we're all alike. She already knew how Ange felt about me, but she wasn't about to tell me why.
When I was just about your age, I walked far from my neighborhood with a couple of girlfriends. We had no idea where we were. Suddenly, a woman started to call from the window, "Get them! Get them, white girls! Get them ugly, white girls!" And more people came to their doorsteps and started shouting at us. We had to run as fast as we could. It was the most frightening experience I've ever had. So you must never, ever go into a Negro neighborhood because Negroes are
Savages! That's what she said. Savages. Again, there was that odd stillness in the room, a feeling that something not quite right had occurred. 7 years of being taught by nuns never gave you the opportunity to question anything you were told. So when the time inevitably came to detect that something was wrong, we were in no way equipped to deal with it. We just sat still, which is what a good Catholic used to do best. I decided I no longer want to sit still.
There is a certain boy in this class
I became someone who no longer had a name.
who is going to a public high school.
I was the only one in the entire class going to a public high school, and everyone knew it. Why did I suddenly become a certain boy?
He will be associating with Jews. He will lose his soul and become a communist.
That certainly had the desired effect. Jews, communists, two of the biggest fears you could have in 1952. There was no less loss of oxygen in the room and no weird stillness, just a very audible, oh, and a lot of shocked expressions.
We can only pray for this boy's immortal soul.
And how were they to do that if she didn't mention my name? Pray for his immortal soul. That expression was nothing more than a signal for disguised hatred, and she wondered why I wanted to leave the hallowed halls of Catholic education.
Hey, Eugenio! Could you come here for a moment?
We were in the schoolyard after lunch waiting for that bell to ring. A beautiful spring day, just a few weeks before the term ended, a few weeks before freedom. Yes, sister.
Hey, Eugenio. Mother Superior is always mentioning your wonderful sense of rhythm. Are you part Negro?
She asked it as calmly as you could ask for the time of day. Classmates nearby were visibly embarrassed. I couldn't understand why she would ask such a question, but I just shook my head and quietly said, no.
I could see the rage in his eyes, the quivering lips.
Stares during the class afternoon were constant, not hostile, only quizzical, coming from faces I had known since kindergarten. Faces that suddenly appeared not to know me at all. No matter how young you are, you can always sense when something around you is crumbling, even when there's no motion. It is terrifying.
Watching him quiver was so out of character. He often seemed almost fearless. I believe he was the only student who was allowed to take public transportation into town.
Errands. I ran errands for my mother.
What parent allows a child to do that?
It was just the two of us, me and Mom. She couldn't always get away from the laundry where she worked to get the bills paid.
Evidently, he could breeze through any neighborhood in the city without worrying about being attacked.
Well, the streets were so much safer then.
The streets were safer for him. So safe, in fact, that our pastor allowed him to take the deposit from the weekly collection to the bank a few blocks away.
They had me running all sorts of errands, the nuns, the priests. I enjoyed being trusted with the responsibility. I enjoyed the sense of
Confidence it gave him.
One day I did ask Father Farrell if sending someone my age to the bank with so much money wasn't just a little bit risky, and he said,
Who would think that a boy 12 years old would be carrying so much money?
what they had attempted to give me in those first 8 years, she was trying to destroy. But she was trying to destroy something else.
I have always firmly believed, as I was taught, that a call to a religious life, a vocation, was a call from God. I knew God would not call anyone who would harbor feelings of hatred, unless such feelings were needed to protect.
My mother had just run the last sheet through the wringer on the washing machine and placed it in the laundry basket when I said, But Sister Regina Ange asked me. Why, she said. She asked me if I was part colored. She had already lifted the basket, but stopped and put it down slowly. Without turning to look at me, she waited a moment and said, "You are." I watched as she picked up the basket and walked quickly into the yard to hang the sheets.
Everything had to be protected. The church, the neighborhood. A change of complexion was unthinkable.
The sight of our blazing white sheets falling from the clothesline looked like a tent being dismantled. She collapsed. From the kitchen, I could see Mom on her knees with the sheets spread before her, as though her wedding gown had suddenly become undone. I knew there had never been a wedding.
She thought she could protect him by giving him that obvious Italian name, Eugenio.
I knew Bonacorso was her name. The Eugenio came from Pacelli. Eugenio Pacelli, Pope Pius XII. He became Pope the day I was born.
And the other nuns, even the priests, thought they could protect him by never mentioning his origins.
She couldn't stop sobbing. All I could do was hold her and tell her, it's all right. It's all right. That didn't make any difference.
But it made a difference to me.
Nothing seemed to help.
God would not have allowed me to feel such loathing unless it had a purpose.
All those years of determined silence,
They were wrong.
encouragement,
Inflicting a disguise
nourishment,
on something that should never be disguised.
Love.
To protect what?
just an innocent kid.
It is always the children who suffer the most.
And there's always someone there to see that they do.
There was a certain boy in this class.
I didn't hang around for graduation.
He left St. Monica's before our graduation ceremonies. Even though he would have graduated top of the class.
How did I go from feeling so totally accepted to wanting to flee some unspecified danger, all that had been unspoken?
He is the only one of you lost to Holy Mother Church.
As kind, as hard-working as she was, I wanted to flee my own mother.
His immortal soul will be lost forever.
She simply didn't have the strength, the courage to stand up to the consistency of that damn bell and the determined lack of rhythm.
Scene 2, the park, a few years later. The church bell tolls. Fred is seated on a bench. Checks his watch, pauses, checks his watch again. He wears a vested tweed suit. 16-year-old Jean observes Fred, carries school books in a loose-leaf binder. He wears khakis and a starched white shirt. Fred continues to check his watch impatiently. Jean approaches, sits on the opposite bench, makes notes in his binder. Finally, he speaks.
He didn't show up again.
What?
Your friend. He didn't show up again.
Do I know you?
Uh-huh. And your friend doesn't either.
Then how,
I couldn't help but watching you for over a month now.
really? What were you doing, hiding in the bushes?
No, just sitting over there.
Ah. And, why didn't you stay over there?
When I saw that your friend didn't show up for the third time, I got curious.
Curious.
Yeah.
And, what makes his not showing up any of your business?
I didn't say it was any of my business.
But you're acting as though it is.
Guess I can't help it.
Are you always this,
Forward.
yes, that's a good word for it.
Yeah, that's what I've been called. Forward, Too smart for my own good, a smart ass.
Precocious. How old are you?
16.
16. Oh. You hustling?
With these books, sitting here taking notes. Do I look like a hustler?
Well, not your typical.
No, I'm not a hustler.
Oh.
Was your friend a hustler?
Did he look like a hustler?
No, I guess not. He was too clean cut, too neat. But he sure was handsome enough to be a hustler. And I don't think he was much older than I am.
Not much. But I think he was a bit of a hustler.
How long?
2 years. We saw each other for 2 years.
Then he must have been around my age.
Not much. He was older, 18. He's 20 now. I do not rob cradles.
Oh, gee, why not? It can be fun. I've been robbed from my cradle a lot.
I'm sure you have, but not here. This isn't exactly the craziest part of town.
That's why I like it. Get my work done, and if the weather's bad, I just run into the library. I do my cruising at the Y.
Central?
Uh-huh.
I go there.
I know.
I've never seen you.
Yes, you have.
When? I thought you said we've never met.
We haven't met. You were staring at me one Saturday afternoon a few months ago.
I do not stare at anyone, and I do not stare at underage boys.
You sure do when they were doing flips on the Roman rings.
Oh, yeah. Huh. You look different,
I should hope so. I'm fully clothed.
and very nicely, I might add.
Thanks.
Who does your shirt? I don't think I've ever seen your shirt look so white, so crisp.
My mother.
How did you get so skilled on the Roman rings?
I'm on the gym team at school.
And where is that?
Central.
I'm impressed.
With the school or the gym team?
Both. I wouldn't be impressed if you said you were on its football team.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. Nick, 1, Pearl, 2, Central High, woo, woo!
Jews don't make good football players.
You think so?
I know, so I tried.
You Jewish?
Yes, and you?
Italian. Mostly. Colored. And God knows what else.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not.
What's your name?
Gene. Bonacorso. What's yours?
Fred. Fred.
You don't have to tell me your name. You can make one up if you like.
It's Skolnick. Fred Skolnick.
I'm pretty sure you didn't make that one up.
No. Bonacorso. Your father married a colored girl?
Are you nuts? Italian boys don't marry colored girls. Not that I know of, anyway. It's my mother who's Italian. Never laid eyes on my father.
Oh, you say that so casually.
I've had a lot of practice. I get asked the question often.
In your neighborhood?
No, not where I live. I've been in this same neighborhood all my life, and only one person ever asked what I was. Guys at the gym will
At
ask.
school?
No, at the Y. Guys at school don't care. They've known me for years. The only thing they care about is if anyone has brains.
Oh, yes, that is the most important thing in Central.
So what do you do, Fred Skolnick?
Sales.
Yeah? What?
Zippers. Sell zippers.
Oh, ooh.
Oh my God, I've been waiting for somebody to laugh about that since I got the job, and I didn't think it would be a kid.
Well, gee, Fred, you have to admit, a guy who likes selling zippers.
Well, I'm glad you had your laugh, I guess I better.
Oh, don't go.
I've seen kids your age working the streets.
I'm not working the streets.
No, but you're working at that bench and at the Y.
You said this wasn't the cruisiest park in town.
No, it isn't.
How? When would I work it? If I worked anything?
You were here.
No, you were here. You and your friend have been coming here for months. I've been coming here for 3 years, and you are the first person I've ever spoken to.
You own that bench?
No, but I sure as hell ain't working that bench, or any other bench for that matter.
That's terrible language for a central student.
I can do worse.
I'm sure you can, at your age, person like that.
Fuck, it looks like we're having our first fight.
What the hell does that mean? Our first fight? Jesus Christ.
And not nice to say God's name in vain.
You're really something else, you know that? Well, I don't know. What the hell are you writing there? You can't be doing homework and talking to me at the same time.
Yes, I can.
Yeah, come on.
Dates. I'm writing down dates. History. Helps me remember them if I write them down.
I see.
Do you object to not having my full attention?
I think having your full attention would be pretty damn terrifying.
Well, why don't we take a chance and see how it goes?
Gene closes his books.
There. That's the end of those dates. Would you like to make a date?
Do you see what that's exactly what I mean?
What?
I'm not even that aggressive, and I'm an adult.
And that's one of the things I like about you, Freddie.
Don't do that. Do not call me Freddie.
Okay.
What does that mean? One of the things you like about me? When did you even get a chance? Oh, yeah.
Yes, at the Y.
Do you check everyone?
Everyone checks out everyone. Men do that. Even the ones who aren't attracted to guys check out other guys.
I don't look at underage boys.
You do when they're on the Roman rings.
That was a thing of beauty.
That's why I'm on the gym team.
Why, I know I should ask you this question. Why, are you cruising?
Are you serious?
Yes.
Fred, have you looked in the mirror lately?
When I shave.
Have you seen yourself naked?
You mean do I stand in front of a mirror? No.
Have you seen guys at the Y looking at you?
Sometimes.
How long have you been messing around with guys?
Not long.
How long?
Couple of years.
How old are you?
I'm 33 years old, Dr. Kinsey. You know who Dr. Kinsey is?
Oh, sure. I go to Central.
The lab knows Kinsey.
I haven't read him.
In a few years, I'm sure. Do any of the men at the Y get you to go to bed with them?
What do you think?
That's what I was afraid of.
Why should you be afraid?
You're underage. 16 is underage.
Tell my body that.
Now, men at the Y should keep their hands off you.
You asked if they get me to go to bed with them.
Uh-huh.
It's always the other way around.
What does that mean?
I have to get them to go to bed with me. Oh, but it's not my bed, of course. It's always their bed. And it's always my idea. It's always hard work.
They're not saying no.
Oh, yes, they are. At first. Sometimes it takes months to get a man into bed.
Oh, you might have better luck with boys your own age.
I am not at all interested in guys my own age.
Why not?
To begin with, they don't kiss. They don't know how to suck cock.
Holy shit.
Why are you so shocked? That's what we do, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
And you're either good at it, or you're not.
and you... Are you, no. I'm going to ask that.
I think cock-sucking is an art form. Anyone who has ever had his cock sucked by someone knows it's an art form if they're good at it.
When I was your age,
There was no such thing as penicillin.
you needed penicillin?
Not yet.
Well, that at least is reassuring.
Yeah, I guess, if you need reassuring.
16? I knew nothing when I was 16.
Times have changed.
No, they haven't. What you regard as an art form is still considered abnormal, not to mention it.
Illegal. Yeah, I know. But only by people who aren't doing it. And the ones who don't admit to doing it. I mean, it took you, 30 years to admit what you wanted?
Almost that.
And what were you doing before that?
Not much. Not much at all.
You're the second really good-looking guy I've met who's wearing blinders most of his life.
And what woke you up at such an early age?
And intuition, I guess. And the need to get out of the neighborhood.
Why would you have to get out of the neighborhood?
Because I felt I didn't belong there.
But you're still there.
Only to eat and sleep.
Do you feel like you belong at something?
Sure, there's a lot of us at Central. It's a very brainy school. I would have gone nuts at South Catholic or even worse, Southeast.
Oh, you don't think there are no gay kids at Southeast Catholic or Southern?
What kids?
Gay kids.
Is that what you call homosexuals? Gay kids?
That's what homosexuals are called. Gay.
Who calls them that?
Homosexuals.
You mean that's what they call themselves?
Yeah.
That is the dumbest thing I have ever heard. Gay? Gay.
You never heard that before.
No, and no one else I know has ever used it.
Well, what have you been calling yourself all this time?
Gene? What did you call yourself before you discovered you were gay?
A mess.
A mess. What's that, Yiddish?
I'm a fucking mess.
A mess. Well, wait till I tell the guys at school what we're known as. Gay. I hate that. It sounds so weird.
What would you prefer to be called?
Emperor Eugenio Bonacorso!
I got it. I haven't laughed like that in quite some time.
Well, I guess you're not hanging around enough gay people. So, Fred, Skolnick, when are you going to take me home?
That's never going to happen.
You sure about that?
Yes, I am very sure about that.
You don't want to make up for lost time?
What lost time?
Well, you yourself had said you've been fooling around with guys for about 2 years, and seeing your missing friend for 2 years. How much fun could you have had in such a short period of
How
time?
long have you been at this?
3 years. So you got your beat by one.
I don't make it with underage boys.
Then why are you still sitting here?
Because this is one of the weirdest encounters I have ever had in my entire life.
And why is that?
Because you're so damn sure of yourself.
Would you be less interested if I were older?
Oh.
More interested?
Possibly.
Why?
Because I've already seen you on the Roman Reigns.
See, I know when people are staring.
What makes you so sure of yourself?
People staring. You're not even aware when you're on the receiving end of those stares. I've seen guys at the Y practically foam at the mouth for you.
I've never seen that. Never.
I know, I've watched you. You don't even look at
I
guys.
think it's rude, and I'm afraid I might look at the wrong guy.
I guess we're all afraid of that.
Have you ever looked at the wrong guy?
No. No, not really. I have started conversations with guys who have been staring for weeks, but when I spoke to them, they got kind of nasty.
Yes.
Not physically. You know, who do you think you are? What do you think you're doing? That sort of thing. They sit there, looking at me for weeks, staring at my cock in the pool, and then they give me the, who do you think you are bullshit. Assholes.
I would have done the exact same thing. You're a very frightening young man.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess so. But you'll talk to me here, not at the Y.
I wouldn't want to be seen talking to you. How would that look? I'd look like a...
The cradle robber, yeah, I know.
It's just not right. What about the guys you end up in bed with?
What about them?
Why weren't they frightened of you?
I guess after a while they got used to me, and I had to get used to that. I sure as hell don't go to bed with anyone I'm not comfortable with.
Do you have sex with them regularly?
Few of them. Depends on how we feel. Just timing, I guess. But most of them have become friends.
Friends? What kind of friendship could a grown man have with a teenager?
The kind of friendship that is based in similar interests.
Oh, you know men your age who are gymnasts? My age?
I know men my age who are interested in film.
Film? Not movies.
Theater, movies, museums, and literature.
Baseball, basketball, no football?
Those are not the kinds of balls they're interested in.
Oh, yeah, I suppose so.
And what are you interested in?
Museums, theater, literature, and of course, film.
That wasn't very nice.
No, it wasn't.
I'm not the one who didn't show up today.
No, you're not.
You don't really have anyone to talk to, do you?
Do you?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Oh, that's right. You go to Central, you seduce men at the Y, your conversations are probably already legendary.
Are you one of those guys who felt like he was the only one in the world who was attracted to other guys? When you realized you had those feelings?
Yes. Yes, I was. And you didn't.
No, I own a dictionary. I was 12 when I looked up the word homosexual. And I knew that if it was in the dictionary, it probably wasn't just put there for me.
Wait, why does a 12-year-old kid come in contact with the word homosexual?
When one of the priests in the parish makes every possible attempt to suck my cock.
What?
There was a priest, Father Murray. He would always try to get me aroused. He kept telling me that if I got aroused, then maybe I was a homosexual. But when I asked what a homosexual was, he wouldn't tell me. He said it was a secret. Just like trying to get me aroused was a secret. The old ugly fart probably thought I didn't know how to spell.
You're making this up.
No, I'm not. He was a real pain in the ass. Now, had he been good looking, it would have been another story. Now, why couldn't he have looked like Johnny Weissmuller or Johnny Sheffield?
Who's Johnny Sheffield?
Bomba, the Jungle Boy. Also plays Tarzan's son. Lucky kid.
I thought you weren't attracted to kids your own age.
Johnny was an exception once he got to be Bomba.
So are you. An exception. But you, very dangerous.
No, I'm not.
Do you realize that men go to jail?
Nobody has ever gone to jail because they went to bed with me.
But it could happen.
Well, it won't.
You already said you went to bed with guys at the Y.
Did I mention any names? And you wouldn't know any of them because you don't talk to anyone. Remember, you're the guy who doesn't have anyone to talk to.
What about the crazy priests?
Priest. Not priests. It was one goofy priest. The others were fine. The pastor gave me a lot of confidence.
Oh, good for him, but that one priest could end up in jail.
He's a priest for Christ's sake. They never do anything wrong. Nuns never do anything wrong. That's the way it is. Oh, you are definitely not Catholic.
What the hell does that mean?
You think the cops are going to do anything to the Catholic Church? That's not possible. Priests do whatever they want. Nuns too. They can say whatever they want, and they can make you feel like shit when they do it. That's why I left.
Did the priest do that to you?
Not the priest. The priest was a nudge. But at least he gave me the word and told me what I was. And that sure as hell led to some fun, but not with him. No. It was a nun. A nun who knew just what to say and when to say it. Who made me feel like shit. The priest wanted to suck my cock. Now that I think of it, that was flattering. Even if he was repulsive.
What if you did that with kids who
Aren't homosexuals?
Yeah.
I always thought he did it because he knew I was homosexual, even before I could label it. Do you think he tried it with guys who weren't?
How the hell would I know? I'm the guy who's definitely not Catholic.
That would be horrible. It would be like trying to force me to have sex with a woman. Oh, revolting. frightening even.
How did you figure out at such an early age? Even as an adult, I buried everything in you. You're like a
what?
I don't know what. Whatever it is, it scares me.
Okay.
Okay, what?
Okay, you're scared. I can't do anything about
Do
that.
you enjoy shocking people?
No, I enjoy talking with people. Do you?
No. I don't enjoy talking with people. And I never said that to anyone. Never said it to myself. And no one ever asked that question.
Must be difficult for a zipper salesman not wanting to talk to people.
Selling is not talking.
No.
No, it's different. It's not this.
What did you talk to your friend about for 2 years?
Stuff. We talked about stuff.
What kind of stuff
The kind of stuff interior decorators talk about.
is that what it is?
That's what he's studying to be for 2 years. I've listened to him talk about furniture, draperies, upholstery, tchotchkes.
I guess that kind of outweighs zippers, doesn't it?
And I guess that's why he hasn't been here for 2 weeks.
Have you tried phoning him?
I can't. He lives with his family.
I have that same problem. No one can phone me. But some of the guys, the ones who live alone or with their lovers, I have their numbers.
No guys who live together.
A few. You're surprised?
Not really. It's only that you seem to have more of a social life than I have.
Well, if you start talking to people, maybe things will pick up for you.
I've always felt so damn different. Awkward. Moved. You probably have no idea what that's like. That was a real dumbass and sensitive thing to say, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Don't apologize. That was the second laugh you've given me.
You laugh a lot with your friends.
Sometimes, yeah, sure. But then I've come across some real dumbass shit because of my background.
Why?
People ask. People usually want to know what nationality you are.
With your name, people would assume you're Italian. You look Italian.
You wanted to know if I was Jewish before you knew my name. Most people don't care what I am. But then, there is always someone who will ask the dumbass question, have you ever eaten spaghetti?
Nobody's ever asked you that.
Yeah, somebody did ask me that.
What was he thinking?
Now, who said it was a guy?
I just assumed it was one of the guys you met.
No, it was a mother of a buddy from school. She's a lesbian.
The mother of a buddy from school admits to being a lesbian?
She doesn't have much of a choice. We're talking serious butch here. I mean, she makes Gabriel Heater look like Ima Sumac.
Who's Ima Sumac?
Oh boy, you really don't get out much at all. Ima Sumac is an Inca princess, or so she says. Has an 8-octave range, or so she says. Does bird calls.
How do you know this stuff?
I'm a homosexual, I'm supposed to know this stuff. And what's your excuse for not knowing it? Too busy selling zippers?
I listen to jazz, mostly.
No musicals?
No,
Have you ever been to a musical?
only movies.
Not in a theater? Live?
No.
Are you sure you're Jewish?
Yes, I am most certain of it. I do not come from a typical Jewish family, and you sure as shit don't come from a typical anything.
Why do I get the impression that I'm having more fun than you've ever had?
Because you are having way more fun.
I can think of a way to eliminate the absence of pleasure in your life.
You are relentless, absolutely relentless.
No, not sex. I am not talking about sex.
You're having a change of heart?
I'm sure, when I first saw you at the Y, I thought, great lips, eyes, and then I saw you in the shower.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's enough of that.
See, that's why I never approached you at the Y. You would have run and never talked to me again.
Right, that's exactly what I would have done.
But here it's okay.
Mm,
No witnesses.
Witnesses. Perfect word. Considering you want me to commit a crime.
I want you to meet some people you can talk to.
Teenage homosexuals and lesbians, I don't think so.
I have good, kind friends. And not many of them are all that interested in stuff. Though I'm sure a few of them would be interested in your zippers.
Now he's trying to fix me up, buddy.
Why not? Isn't that what people do?
Do you get passed around?
What does that mean?
Do guys you go to bed with introduce you to other guys who want to go to bed with you?
No. No, I've never had that happen. Yet. I'm sure if a friend introduced me to someone and I happened to like him, it would be okay. But right now I'm still quite capable of choosing my own victims.
Victims?
It was a joke, for Christ's sake! Blanche Dubois! The Tarantula Arms! That is where I took my victims. Oh, forget it.
What the hell are you gonna be when you grow up?
A trapeze artist.
Oh, yeah. Huh?
Yep, I'm gonna run away with the Ringling Brothers. Join Barnum and Bailey, a world where you can be a real clown. Where people don't care what nationality you are. Where almost all nationalities are present. And where you do a job that makes the world smile. Can you think of anything better than that?
20 minutes ago, I was thinking you're the weirdest kid I ever saw. Now I know you're the weirdest person I've ever met.
You know a lot of kids.
No.
You know a lot of people that have kids, have a lot of friends.
No.
Then you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, do you?
Holy shit, you're going to one of the best public high schools in the country and you want to be a trapeze artist?
That's what I want to be. It's not what I'm going to be.
And what will you do?
A hairdresser.
Oh, you're kidding. I know you're kidding.
I don't know what I'm going to be when I grow up.
You should be thinking of it now.
Really? And how old were you when you decided to be a zipper salesman?
Don't be a smartass. You need to think of the future. Do you like school?
Hate it. Except for gym class.
That attitude's going to affect your grades.
My grades are good. I just get bored all the time.
Well, when are you not bored?
Right now I'm not bored at all.
That's a nice compliment. But they don't teach this in any school.
The Greeks did. But you would think nothing of his face, he replied. If you could see his naked form, he is absolutely perfect.
And that is...
The beginning of Plato's first dialogue. It's the only part I really understood.
figures.
Are you bored? Right now?
No, not at all. I'm too terrified to be bored.
So you were probably a match made in heaven.
How does such ideas pop in your head? I would never think of saying that to someone, even if I was thinking it.
It's what I want to say. It's fun to say it. And it might even be true.
And, well, we're not going to find out.
No?
No. Are you like this with everyone you meet?
Hell no. Very few people I meet look like you.
I mean, are you always so blunt?
Depends on the setting.
The setting.
I would never have this conversation at the gym, or at a party, or any place else where there are other people. Would you?
Certainly not.
And that's what I like about times like this. You have someone all to yourself. Nobody's around. You find them attractive, and if you're a homosexual, you can pretty much say what you want. No pretense. You don't have to be polite.
I'm trying to be polite.
You asked me if I was a hustler. Was that polite?
I guess not.
Do you live alone?
None of your business. Why do you want it?
Wishful thinking. I kind of want you to live alone. At least for the next 2 or 3 years.
Why?
Because if I can't have you now, I'll get you later. When I'm old enough. What?
This has gone as far as it's going to go.
So soon.
I'm afraid I'm Starting to enjoy the flattery.
I hope so. If you got out of those tired tweeds and into a pair of nice Levi's and talked to people, you'd be flattered even more.
What makes you so sure that that's what I want?
What do you want?
I don't know.
You want your friend to come back. That's something.
Lenny? I'm not even sure about that now. He became a habit I thought I should have. Have you ever tried dating someone?
Kind of. Maybe, but not for any length of time.
I bet you've never had any schoolboy crushes.
On the two Johnnies, Weissmuller and Sheffield.
Movie stars don't.
Yeah, okay. I've had a crush on someone who I thought was a schmuck.
What made him a schmuck?
He wasn't responding when I wanted him to.
Oh, so that made him a schmuck. Huh. Who was it?
I'm not saying. And why do you want to know?
Just wondered if it was any of the guys at the walk.
I don't know you well enough to tell you that. Maybe when I get to know you better.
If you got to know me better, I wouldn't want to know. I have what's known as a jealous streak.
Is that bad? Isn't everyone a little jealous?
I don't know about everyone. Have you ever been jealous?
Sure.
When?
When someone else is getting someone I want. Isn't that when we get jealous? Are you wondering who's kissing Lenny? Is that his name?
No.
Do you wonder who's kissing him now?
Most likely his wife.
Married.
With 2 kids. He was married at 16.
And you say I'm precocious? You'd think people would be more careful.
Was your mother careful?
Well, no. I guess not.
Are you being careful?
What I do isn't going to get anyone pregnant. And I sure as hell won't be getting pregnant. So, what's the point?
The point is that
Well,
we're not considered normal. And it's against the law.
who gives a shit? The law is a goddamn lie. And what harm am I doing if I'm having sex with someone?
You're too young to even know what the hell you're doing.
Then why am I enjoying it so much? It's my body. I'm not hurting anyone with it.
You might just have a very sorry road ahead of you with that attitude.
And you already have a very sorry road behind you.
No, I don't.
You let that beautiful body of yours go unused for what? 19 years? 20 years? It's pretty selfish if you ask me. And when you finally decide to do something, what do you take up? A married man with children. Couldn't do any better than that.
It's my body. Isn't that what you just said? And you do what you want with it.
You haven't been doing what you want. You've been doing what others want. The abstinence thing about 2 years ago? You're not even Catholic.
Why the hell do you even give a damn what I do?
Because you're the schmuck at the gym that I had a crush on. Oh. I know it. I probably shouldn't have said that.
I guess not.
Where are you going?
Gene, the flattery was nice. Really?
I'm allowed.
Yes, you are. And I'm not. You don't even know.
Since when do you have to know somebody to have a crush on him? It happens all the time.
Not to me.
Well, I guess that's the problem, isn't it?
Listen, don't go through life thinking you can pounce on whatever you want. The world isn't like that.
It is when you know when and where to pounce.
The bell
You're
tolls.
very dangerous, Mr. Bonaparte, so very dangerous.
Not at all. Anything but.
The bell tolls.
I must ask you to do something for me.
Okay.
What? The bell tolls.
If you see me at the gym, if you see me on the street, if you see me anywhere, don't talk to me, don't acknowledge my existence.
The bell tolls. Gene picks up his books.
I can do that.
Thank you.
No problem. Hmm. 40 minutes. Not bad. Not bad at all.
The bell tolls. The lights fade. End of Act 1. There will be a 5-minute intermission. Act 2, Scene 1. The church bell tolls as a light comes up on Fred. He wears a beige poplin suit, shirt, and tie.
I walked away from a 16-year-old boy in sheer fear. Sweating! I was sweating on a clear, crisp October day. My shirt was soaked, but I had walked only a block, if that, before I realized I missed him. I was old enough to be his father. A week later, I was back looking for him, hoping the weather would stay balmy enough to keep him on that bench.
The bell tolls as a light comes up on Gene B. Gene A enters carrying his books. He wears jeans and a t-shirt.
You were such hard work.
Worth every effort, but hard work nonetheless.
I tried to talk myself out of going back to the bench, but in that week, I didn't seem, I thought of nothing else. I hated myself for it. I felt weak. I deliberately avoided going to the Y. Told myself that he probably wouldn't keep his promise to avoid me, that he might even deliberately embarrass me. And I realized that I was more concerned that he would avoid me.
Well, that would have been.
Impossible.
I went back to the park. Same time, same bench. He said,
Hey, Fred.
Ah, how you been?
the self-assured little stinker was expecting me, and I realized he was expecting me. Oh, well, okay. You? Fine.
If you're wondering about your friend Lenny,
No, I'm not wondering about money.
probably best.
Let's get one thing straight.
Oh, is this going to be a pun?
I hate puns.
We're not going to bed. Understand?
Probably best.
I have to protect myself.
Oh, yes. Yes, you do. Of course you do.
So, how's the zipper business?
Oh, what can I say? The world will always need zippers.
And the magnificent men who sell them. I had already given up prayer when I left St. Monica's, but I made an exception and said a daily prayer to St. Jude that he would return.
Good old St. Jude. Patron saint of the hopeless, the impossible.
I wonder if God gave him hell for getting Freddie back to me.
Freddie! I actually allowed him to call me Freddie. Fred, he said Fred was too short, too,
Abrupt. The short E wasn't enough.
Freddie, as opposed to Fred.
The kid had a musical ear.
And a wonderful sense of rhythm.
Go with me.
I've never seen a foreign film.
Come on. You'll like it. It's free.
He knew every free cultural event in the city. So many things were free. I had no idea. What's the title?
It's a Japanese film, Ugetsu. My friend refers to it as a Ugetsu girl.
I don't speak Japanese.
Who does?
Oh, well, all right.
The bell tolls as the light fades quickly on the two men. Scene 2. When it tolls again, the lights come up behind the scrim at stage center, revealing Jean seated on a bench and Sister Regina Ange poised in the act of walking. He wears revealing Levi's. She carries a briefcase. She hesitates to look at Jean.
Eugenio Bonacorso.
Yeah. Yes?
You've grown.
It happens. Do I?
You don't recognize me, do you?
No, Oh my God. Sister Regina.
Ange. Yes.
Does Father Farrell know you're running around dressed like that?
Well, it's no longer Sister Regina Ange.
You're kidding. What is it now? Hitler?
Very funny. I'm back to being Well, it doesn't matter.
You left the convent.
Well, it's that way, doesn't it?
I didn't even know you could do that. I thought they burned you at the stake or something.
Those days are gone.
What a shame. Why did you leave if you don't mind my asking?
I realized I didn't belong there.
I could have told you that.
Quick-witted, I see. Looks as though the Jews have gotten to you.
Oh, yeah.
Where's your friend today?
It's really amazing how in an instant the simplest sentence can suddenly arouse the most negative feelings.
What friend?
The man I've seen you talking to here so often.
Funny, I've never noticed you before.
I had no idea how I was going to maneuver.
What are you doing in the neighborhood so often?
I work over there at the Archdiocese.
I never go to cathedral. Do you like it there?
Yes. So, your friend is...
He's my big brother.
That's very funny, Eugenio.
Don't call me that. Don't ever call me that again.
But that's your name.
But you make it sound like a curse.
You really think so? Do you expect me to believe that man is your brother?
My big brother. You've heard of Big Brothers? It's over on Van Pelt Street. They take boys and find big brothers for them. Fatherless boys.
So I was good on my feet.
That's a fine idea.
Or so I thought.
How long has he been your big brother?
About a year.
What is it over there, Big Brothers? Catch as catch can?
What does that mean?
Couldn't they have found a big brother who's Catholic?
How do you know he's not Catholic?
Because he has the map of Israel all over his face.
Do you have a problem with Jews? Are you going to tell me that you were once chased down the street by a pack of Jews?
Fred, in Levi's and a sports shirt, approaches. Jean waves him off. Fred backs away towards the partially concealed bench and sits down.
No, but I think someone your age would be better off with someone of your own kind, your own religion.
But I'm a senior at Central High, remember? There is a certain boy. I've already spent 3 years with Jews and communists. You don't remember your prediction? You were right. I left what you call my religion, my kind, behind 3 years ago.
I'm very sorry to hear that.
You're sorry to hear that.
Yes, of course.
You are so full of shit. You hate me.
Oh, don't do that. Don't you dare do that.
You don't scare me anymore.
I lied. She scared me a great deal. Her presence was the last thing I wanted to see, ever.
And I couldn't do anything to help.
Why are you just sitting there? Don't you have work to do?
I think your immortal soul might be more important.
I left my immortal soul in your classroom 3 years ago, and you were welcome to it.
We never give up on anyone.
But you're not a nun anymore.
Just because I removed the habit and the clothes doesn't mean I removed the religion. Every soul counts in the eyes of God.
And what makes you think I'm going to stay here long enough to listen to what you have to say?
I have a duty to perform. I could go to your home and have a conversation with your mother. Does she know your big brother is a Jew?
Going to my home, the very last thing I wanted.
My mother is too busy working. She wouldn't care if my big brother was a full-blooded orangutan.
You mean she doesn't know about your big brother?
She knows.
Yeah, of course my mother didn't know. She was too busy working to pay much attention to what I did. I had enormous freedom.
That was a terrifying day for me, being waved away by you like that.
What else could I do? She would have devoured you in seconds.
At first I thought she might be a relative.
Oh, yeah, sure. My few aunts and uncles on the Parkway of Philadelphia. The main library, the Franklin Institute, the Rodin Museum, the Magnificent Art Museum, the city's cradle of culture. I don't think so. The only place they might have gone, the one place I never went, was the cathedral. And I don't think anyone of them ever set foot in that place. It was not a cultured family. And I sure as hell wasn't a religious one.
The offices for the archdiocese were right behind the cathedral.
Yeah.
That's where I always parked the car. I bet she saw you.
Yeah, the Jewish stars you kept on the dashboard.
You gave me that thing.
Well, something had to take the load off poor old St. Christopher.
What makes you so sure he's not Italian? I know Italians who look like him.
I doubt if there are many men of any nationality who look like him.
Oh. And that was the moment when I knew I couldn't walk away from her.
And you're sure it's my soul you're interested in?
I beg your pardon.
Never mind.
I didn't have the guts to ask her outright. She had the hots for you, Freddie.
What is this strange effect I have on Catholics?
What if I told you that you're wrong? That he is Italian?
You'd be lying.
How would you know that?
He has the Star of David on his dashboard.
How long have you
The
been...
lights dim quickly, leaving a dominant spot on Sister Regina Ange.
I never cease to be surprised at how naive these people can be. Does he honestly think he's not being watched? Really? But do I have time for him? No, they're very low on the list. Maybe this is just a sign. A sign from God. Of course. I suppose those were inevitable. I've been watching him for months with his friend, oh well. But why the sudden change
The
in...
lights come up quickly. Fred walks in wearing tight jeans and a t-shirt.
Look at you! Turn around. Oh, you look wonderful. How do you feel?
Restricted. These damn things are tight.
Yeah, but look at what they do for your
I
ass.
can't see my ass.
But everyone else can.
I'm not supposed to be looking at my ass. I never thought I would go out in public in dungarees.
You never thought you'd be out in public with
A
this.
17-year-old boy, a senior in high school. I thought little of it until he showed up without one of his very respectable suits.
We had gone through the seasons, from tweeds to seersucker to dungarees. He looked best in Levi's.
What a great surprise. I never thought you'd do this. Come on, let's go.
Where?
Leon's, I told
I
you.
forgot.
I told you, he's expecting us. I've got work to do. I'm going to be immortalized.
I hear. That wasn't one friend of yours that I didn't like.
Yeah, they were pretty amazing lot, weren't they? But you were afraid to meet them, remember?
I was worried about what the hell they would think about me. The age difference?
Well, but they were my friends. We did not live in a world of age differences, only common interests.
I learned that fast enough. I had a lot of catching up to do. I knew nothing about well, anything.
Scene 3. The lights dim except for the spot on Sister Regina Ange.
There's certainly a great deal to learn on this parkway that stretches beyond the cathedral. But not one of its museums, its schools, its institutes of science contains a single piece of information that will help me with this challenge. His big brother. It's probably a phase. Whatever it is, I can only rely on my faith, my religion to do what must be done.
I relied on my friends as much as I depended on oxygen. None of them cared what you were, what nationality, what combination of nationalities, what religion, as long as you weren't destructive.
How do I break this down in such a way that it can't be reassembled? It's tricky business, Sin.
Certainly wasn't clear at the time what it was she had to destroy, or what had to be maintained. It was certainly more than what she was willing to reveal.
Thank goodness I don't have to concern myself with specifics. Sin covers a very broad spectrum, and sin is certainly enough of a foundation to get me through this horror.
Sin? If anything saved me, it was sin itself.
What a horrible age
Discovering my own body.
to teach
Knowing how it felt.
when they were just starting
How
to
it was supposed to feel.
discover all we have been warning them about since first grade.
For me,
They-
it was
They never listened.
bliss.
Too many of them just wouldn't listen.
Bliss. For me, it was sheer bliss.
The lights fade on Sister Regina Ange and Jean B. Scene 4. The lights come up at stage right. Fred straddles a ladder-backed chair facing Jean, who is reclining on his side on a draped table. He is nude, except for a wreath on his head and a cornucopia placed at his groin. He removes an apple from the cornucopia.
Do you think Leon would mind if I ate this?
I don't think Leon would deny you, Anakin. Besides, you have 15 minutes before he gets back. You might not notice it's missing.
Oh, he'd notice all right. He notices every line, every color, every shape, and every shadow, but I think he's done with the cornucopia. Better put it back. He might throw off his eye or something.
Fred rises slowly and moves to the rear of the table.
How many friends have you posed for?
3, I think. Maybe 4. I'm not counting.
And you don't charge them.
They can barely afford to eat.
You could probably model at the art school when you're old enough, that is.
I couldn't do that. I wouldn't be comfortable doing that.
Why not?
Friends are one thing. Strangers? No. Couldn't do that.
Strangers see you naked at the gym.
And they're all men. I wouldn't feel comfortable posing for a woman.
Fred gently runs a hand along Jean's body.
That's the first time you've touched me.
Yeah.
Feels good.
I had no idea someone's skin could feel this smooth, this soft.
It's all in the genes.
I thought you hated puns.
I couldn't resist that one. But it's not original.
No.
About a year ago, I met this chorus boy at the gym. He was in town with a musical, a big flop. After we had sex, he said, "Wow, baby, you have the smoothest skin I've ever touched. I guess it's all in the genes." I didn't get it until I was on the trolley on my way home.
Fred continues to touch him gently.
Why did you stop trying to get me into bed with me?
Because you said no sex. Because I knew if I pressed the issue, you would have run away. And because I knew I really liked having you around. And having you around was more important than sex.
Can I change my mind?
Oh, you betcha.
Fred leans down slowly and gives him a tender, lingering kiss.
If someone told me I was going to wait 18 months for that, I would have told them they were crazy.
We met about 7 months ago.
Yeah, but I had a big crush on you before that. Remember?
Oh, yeah, I ran away.
I don't want to do anything that would make you run away again.
I'm not going anywhere.
The lights fade. Scene 5. The lights come up on Jean B at stage left.
To this day, I still don't know how I kept my hands off him all that time. Self-control wasn't one of my strong suits. Well, he had no trouble controlling himself until he saw me pose. Yet, he had seen me at the gym. I never could figure out what the difference was. Maybe it was the cornucopia.
The light comes up on Sister Regina Ange at stage center.
Have you been paying close attention to your studies?
Did she think I was carrying the books around for exercise?
And your music, have you continued with that?
Well, my wonderful sense of rhythm had fallen by the wayside. But why the hell did she care?
Why do you come here so often, Eugenie? Eugene?
I like the light.
The light.
I like the way the light bled through the trees, the way it danced on the ground in a breeze. But most of all, I like the fact that I almost always had the place to myself.
Wouldn't you be more comfortable studying at home?
I never studied at home.
Really? Why not?
Well, I had stopped feeling welcome in the neighborhood where my home was located. She saw to that.
I have no recollection of doing no such thing.
And I wasn't about to remind her.
Oh, yes! Your parentage.
She didn't need to be reminded.
That was the problem, wasn't it? Your parentage.
Only for you.
Oh, no, for the entire neighborhood.
Why was she the first one to mention it? She had just arrived in the neighborhood.
I did not make a major issue of it.
It became a major issue in no time at all.
Well, then maybe there was a reason for that.
And she almost succeeded in destroying all that the nuns she had followed had given me. Almost.
Oh, I doubt that.
They at least made me feel that I belonged there, and at times I actually felt useful.
Yes, those trips to the bank with the deposits. Impeccably neat Eugenio in his beautiful white shirts and handsome leather school bag that concealed a whole lot of money. What a pretty picture.
I'm not wearing brilliant white shirts anymore, and there is no school bag full of money.
The light fades quickly on Gene B. Gene A enters quickly, carrying his books. He takes the same bench. Fred enters slowly, taking the partially concealed bench. Scene 6.
But I'm still pretty as a picture.
Yes, even I have to admit that you're turning into a very handsome young man.
Thanks. But how is all of this supposed to save my immortal soul?
We'll get to that soon enough.
Oh, Lord.
So is your big brother your only friend?
No.
Don't you have friends your own age?
Yes.
Negro friends?
A few. What is this all about?
Lights up on Gene B.
I could see you listening intently, your head snapping every time she asked one of her dumbass questions.
I didn't know what the hell was going on, or whether I should stay or go.
Any Negro girlfriends?
What is that supposed to mean?
I just want to know if you're dating girls of your own race.
And what race is that? I'm a combination of more than one race.
Don't kid yourself, there's no question about it, you're a Negro.
You were about to say nigger, weren't you? Why don't you just leave here?
Why don't you?
Because I've already given up a whole neighborhood, and I'm not giving up any more places to you. I come here when the weather is good. I come because very few people come here. I think of it as my little place in an ugly world that you helped to create. And I need this. So why don't you just go back to work over at the Archdiocese?
I am working.
Making people miserable, that's your job?
Seeing that people keep their place, that's my job.
I had no idea what she meant by that. Control over a classroom full of students, that I could understand. But control over people? It seemed preposterous.
Why do you find that so difficult to believe?
Nuns have no power.
I'm not a nun any longer.
A woman of the world has even less, at least none of the women I knew did.
There is work that has to be done.
What work?
Liaison work.
Liaison was a word that had not yet entered my permanent vocabulary.
Liaison? What's that?
I don't think you need to know that just now.
If ever.
Why are you being so vague? Why are you even here?
Eugenio.
Why, couldn't you just call me Gene, like everybody else? Or just forget my name altogether?
That would be very hard to do.
I haven't seen you in over 3 years. Why did you pick now to bother me?
I really didn't expect to run into you.
Couldn't you have just kept on walking?
No. Oh, no. I'm much too concerned with your future to even think of not stopping to talk to you.
I sure as hell didn't want that kind of attention, especially from someone directly connected to the Archdiocese.
We will always remain connected, Eugene.
Oh, my name. Finally, a small concession.
It's the least I can do.
Yes. Yes, it was.
Scene 7. Fred approaches Gene and hands him 2 books.
I found them,
Finally. Huh.
Thanks. Where'd you get them?
Where else? Leary's. What an odd place that is. Wedged there right into the side of Gimbel's.
Neat, isn't it? Gimbel offered them all sorts of money when he wanted to build the department store, but old man Leary wouldn't sell. They had to build around him.
Smart move. All that traffic from the department store pouring into the bookstore.
It had nothing to do with traffic. A buddy at school says that his grandfather told him old man Leary wouldn't sell it because he doesn't like Jews. And that was the only reason.
Will it ever end?
The prejudice? Yeah, I think so.
What makes you think so?
I'm not down there in the land of bigotry. I got out.
Did you really have a choice?
Guess not. Do you think I would have turned into them if...
Scene 8.
You weren't a Negro? Of course you would have. Everyone wants to belong, Jean. You should know that by now. They don't call them the tribes of Israel for nothing. And I think it would be best if you found your own particular tribe.
And where would that be? That tribe of mine.
Negroes are very color conscious.
Oh, that would certainly make you a Negro, wouldn't it?
It's not the same. I do not perceive color the way a Negro would.
You might be better off if you did.
I doubt that. Look, I'm only trying to help you.
I don't see how.
You and your mother are still living in the same house?
Yes. It's almost paid off. She's worked very hard for that house.
I imagine she has. And I expect you'll inherit the house when she dies?
My mother isn't even 40 years old yet.
Quite honestly now, don't you think you and your mother would be happier in another neighborhood?
Yeah, sure, I would be happier in another neighborhood. That's why I spend so much time in this neighborhood. But I don't see what this has to do with my mother.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing.
Well, I kept watching the back of your head every time it twitched. I thought for sure you would jump up and say something.
You're a nun.
Not
Or
any-
used to be.
When she removed the habit, I thought she meant...
A bad habit?
Yes! A nun! She was a nun. I used to find them kind of strange and wonderful and mysterious. I was sitting a few feet away from her and listening.
Why are you telling me that we should move?
To avoid any future embarrassments. Don't you realize how successful, how popular you would be in a Negro community?
No, tell me. What am I going to do that makes me so popular? Inflict recipes for gravy and meatballs on them? What?
You cook?
When it's just you and your mother, you cook.
Even I don't know how to cook.
And why would you? You were always waited on by the nuns who did nothing but cook.
Each of us had a purpose. Cooking was not my purpose.
Scene 9. Lights up on Fred and Jean.
I can't believe you did that. Thank you.
Why are you surprised?
I don't know anyone who's a good cook. My mother's a terrible cook.
So is my mother.
Then who taught you?
Sam, Jeff, Howard.
Okay.
But it was really Leon. All he said was, if you can read, you can cook. The whole trouble is that there isn't really much to read. All the Italian recipes I get from the women in the neighborhood, Italians don't do recipes. I'd ask a simple question like, how much salt? And they'd say, you know.
Well, it's the best meal I've ever eaten. Makes me want to go out and get my own apartment just so I can have you cook for me.
Oh yeah?
Oh,
If you can read, you can cook.
that's what you think.
Scene 10.
No, my methods were simple. When in doubt, add more butter and garlic.
I have always hated the smell of garlic. And there were so many Italians at St. Monica's. I never expected my purgatory on earth to be the constant odor of garlic. I arrived too late. It used to be a good Irish parish.
With very few recipes.
Food is everything to Italians.
Well, certainly not everything. It was the horniest, sexiest neighborhood in the city. I wonder if she says that. She must have. They almost have. They were always talking about sex, but only as something that shouldn't be done. The more they said no, the more everyone wanted to say yes.
Is it the garlic that makes them so lusty?
Scene 11. Lights up on Jean and Fred, seated at a kitchen table. Fred is looking through wand ads. Jean has his books.
What does Leon pay for this place?
About 35 a month, I think. He's been here for over 10 years.
No one said anything when he gave you a key.
This is the only apartment in the building. No one has said a word. The other spaces are businesses. No one's around at night or on weekends.
If I get a place of my own, it's going to have to be something like this, non-residential. I don't want neighbors asking a lot of questions about you hanging around.
I don't think neighbors would ask questions if this place was in a residential
A
neighborhood.
teenager coming and going in a grown man's apartment.
But I usually carry in groceries when I come and go here. Remember, I shop for Leon. He is lame, after all. That's why he gave me a key, so I could help out.
Not so you could bring your victims here.
Don't start with me, Freddie. You're the only guy I've ever brought here, and I did that with Leon's permission.
I told you he wouldn't deny you anything.
Yes, he could. He would keep me from goofing off, not getting my schoolwork done, being lazy. He would deny me that. He has kept me on track more than anyone I've known.
And I'm jealous of that.
I'm not sleeping with him. Never did. We're friends.
I know that it's the positive influence I envy.
You don't have a positive influence over
Not
me.
as much as you've had on me.
Yeah, well, I have a soft spot for squares. And hunky men. Hunky squares. But if you do get a place of your own, that doesn't mean I'm going to stop coming here.
I wouldn't want you to. You're probably more important in Leon's life than you realize.
He has other
But
friends.
none of them like you. And he's an artist, and a lame one at that.
Oh, okay.
Lights fade at stage right as the lights come down on Jean. Scene 12.
I had the oddly comforting feeling that I was about to become a mate. And I was really looking forward to it. I mean, what the hell? I was only 17 years old. Just. You can be insanely romantic at 17.
I imagine Negroes would like Italian food.
You're suggesting I move to a Negro neighborhood and open an Italian restaurant.
No, I'm only suggesting that you move to a Negro neighborhood, period.
I haven't seen you in over 3 years. Why do you care where I live?
Because it's my job to care.
Your job. You said you worked at the Archdiocese.
I do.
My mother and I live in South Philly. What does that have to do with your work at the Archdiocese?
It's not all masses and novenas, Jean.
I know that. What I don't know is what our moving is going to do for you, for the Archdiocese, for anyone else for that matter.
It's what it would do for you that matters.
Why do you care about me all of a sudden?
Because you are most likely headed toward very dangerous
And
territory.
you're saying I should move.
If you stay where you are, it could become very dangerous.
What's wrong with you? I don't feel unsafe where I live. Just unwanted. There's a difference.
Everyone has made you feel unwanted?
No, not everyone. A few of the women on my block have. Why are we having this conversation? Could you tell me that? As far as I remember, I belong to a group of savages who scared the hell out of you.
You're not nearly dark enough to qualify for that tribe.
But you want me to move in with them. My mother, too.
I'm surprised your mother
Keep
hasn't...
her out of this.
I was just about to say that...
I don't give a shit what you were about to say.
I never saw you, Emily.
I know.
In all those months, I never...
I know.
It's so typical of you people to use that kind of language.
You bet your fucking ass it
It
is.
scared me.
And that was the idea. But it wasn't you I wanted to scare.
It's not going to work. You actually think you're going to scare...
I don't want
You
you
mean-
anywhere near
Well,
my mother!
Understand one thing, boy. I know exactly what's going on here.
What the hell are you talking about?
You and your so-called big brother, the Jew?
What about him?
You're supposed to be getting some sort of guidance. need that sort of thing, so they say. It's not uncommon to go through such a phase. It's the next phase that concerns me.
And what's that going to be? The next phase?
You will most likely marry me.
I will.
Certainly. This big brother nonsense is all meaningless. Women are going to find you very attractive.
They are?
Yes. Look at you now. Imagine what you'll look like in a few years.
You're making me seem like some sort of threat, like a fire or a tornado.
That's exactly what I'm trying to prevent.
How?
I thought you were going to hit her.
I was going to give it some serious thought.
There's no need to get excited.
If you were on the receiving end of this bullshit, you'd be pretty damn excited too.
I just knew you were in trouble when you started cursing.
Is your mouth always that foul?
Yeah, whenever I think it's necessary.
I see no reason why you have to subject me to it. I still am a deeply religious woman.
That's what I'm afraid of.
See? That's exactly what happens when your kind leaves the church.
My kind.
What did she mean by that? You were just a bright, good-looking, extremely precocious teenager.
Do you miss me or something?
I would if you belonged in the neighborhood.
But I have been in the neighborhood longer than you have. I was born in that neighborhood.
And if you stay, you might very well change its complexion.
I have no idea what the hell.
If you were to marry a girl from the neighborhood, and there are only white girls in the neighborhood, you could very possibly have a black child. In what direction would things take then? Have you ever thought of that?
Oh, yes. Yes, oh, yes.
The gentleness of that response was the most menacing sound I'd ever heard in my life.
And I had no idea where that sound came from,
And if we don't move?
or how I got the courage to do what I did.
I will simply go to your mother and tell her what's going on.
No, 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 you won't.
Why couldn't I keep my damn mouth shut?
I was hoping you would.
What could stop me?
Because what you think is going on here is not nearly as terrible as what went on there back at St. Monica's.
I'm sure your neighbors have treated you well.
I'm not talking about the neighbors.
Me then.
No, not you. I'm talking about a certain highly respected priest by the name of Father Murray.
What about him?
I'm talking about what he does with boys.
What are you...
The sexual things he does with boys.
You're what? Only 16?
17. What's the point?
What do you think?
Couldn't you have ignored her?
Not at that moment, Freddie. No, not at that moment.
What do you think you're doing, implicating a priest in such an act?
Implicating. Implicating. His body parts can be described by me.
Well, that was a lie. The priest never exposed himself to me.
And if you go anywhere near my mother, I am going to the cops.
And I could do the same about your so-called big brother.
How do you find him? You don't even know his name.
There are ways.
So, she didn't even know his name.
What would you do? Get all the Christians to round up the Jews?
Someone has already tried to round up the Jews. I'm afraid he didn't get far enough.
Shit!
That was all you had to hear.
The only thing I could think of at that very moment were my parents. My quiet, reserved, perpetually frightened immigrant parents.
I watched you back away.
What choice did I have?
None. I watched you go without watching you go. The last thing I wanted to do was draw attention to your leisure.
Yeah, you sure know how to keep her attention.
You are a disgusting, evil, fucking cunt!
She rises quickly and goes to slap him.
How dare you! I still consider myself a religious!
Jean grabs her arm, blocking the blow. She brings up her other arm, which he also blocks. Holding both wrists firmly, they struggle.
This won't work!
How dare you!
No one slaps me around anymore, especially not the likes of you. That's all so many of you crazy bitches ever did. Knock kids around.
Yes, we did!
But I am not a kid!
Because this is what had to be controlled. Violence! Your violence! Violence from niggers like you!
He shakes her off, causing her to stumble to the bench.
Anyone who did what you just did has to be controlled.
You won't go near my mother. You won't go near our house. If you so much as walk down the street where I live, I will go to the police stations and see that disgusting priest at St. Monica's. I'll make sure he goes to jail. Then I'll come around over and I'll find you. I'll beat the fucking shit out of you.
She clutches her briefcase to her chest as she moves along the bench, rises, and starts backing away.
Nothing. Nothing you just did surprises me. You only confirmed everything I've ever believed about you people.
Then we can protect ourselves.
No! No! That every solution must be a violent one. No one would ever believe a word about what you said with Father Murray. No one! No one!
She exits quickly. Gene slumps on the bench, buries his head in his hands, and moans. The lights fade very slowly on stage center. The bell tolls. Lights come up on Fred. He wears a white shirt, tie, blue blazer, and khaki pants.
And you took the choice I hated the most.
Gene slowly gathers his books together, glancing upstage as though Fred would return.
You were no longer around to stop me.
It wasn't in me to be courageous, Gene.
Yeah, but how long was it before I saw you again? 2 years, and then only by accident.
I waited for you in that park at Leon's, hoping you would phone one of my friends. Our friends. And then you were there, with a drink in
You
hand.
were the last person I expected to see sitting in a Times Square bar.
And you were the
In
one
uniform.
who got angry right off the
It
bat.
was such an incredible waste. It was the last thing I would have wanted for you.
And all I wanted was you. And you disappeared off the face of the
You
earth.
think I didn't miss you?
Not enough to come back.
You know what it's like being in love at 17.
How the hell would I know that? I was stunned at finding myself in love at 33 with the Navy. Why did you do that? How could you do that? You were one of the brightest kids I ever knew. Not just kids, one of the brightest people. You had so much courage.
Yeah. Well, even the brightest of us can make disastrous mistakes. Freddie. And courage fades quickly when you find yourself alone with your own thoughts.
Remember how quickly you backed off when she mentioned the genocide?
Of course I remember.
You already assumed that they would win. The ubiquitous they.
I was raised to assume that.
Oh, weren't we all? Just as you wanted to protect your parents, I wanted to protect my mother.
And I felt the only way to do that was to bow out.
Why did she let you? How could she let you quit school like that?
Education was not an Italian tradition, Freddie.
When I saw you in that uniform, I felt responsible.
And so did my friends. Leon especially. He wept. When I said he would have to find somebody else to carry his groceries, he slapped me.
I never thought he was capable of such a thing.
He slapped me.
I would have done the same thing. The waste was unforgivable. You, of all people, remaining stagnant? Did you really think the Navy held a future for you?
Well, I wasn't thinking. I was running. I was fleeing.
Solving a problem.
That wasn't a life. Not the one I wanted for you, did want for you.
You're right. Became a life totally lacking in ambition without any sense of a future.
Because I was too terrified in the present.
You could have had more.
More is hard to achieve when you feel permanently immobilized.
What scared you, Gene? What could have possibly scared you?
The power they had over all of us.
All of us.
And even if they didn't, that was what we believed.
Look at how quickly you returned to those Ivy League clothes, Freddie.
Once I lost you, I felt, I suppose, safer in clothes that said nothing about sex. I no longer wanted my ass to be of any interest to anyone.
Yes. Yes, I suppose that was bound to happen.
Then how did you end up with a plumber?
You heard, huh?
Word got around.
They came to my parents' home to install the fixtures in the canoe kitchen I bought for him.
Well, you're the only man I've ever known who ended up with a plumber.
He's a year older. He's Jewish. My parents like that. He's solvent. They like that even more.
Look, he's a plumber.
Yes, and he's a plumber who goes to the movies with me, and to the museum, and sometimes a musical.
I taught him well.
I hear he actually courted you.
Oh, bullshit. He courted my parents. He's no dope. He never came to the house empty-handed. Flowers for Mom, kugel for Pop, and they never paid for another plumbing problem.
And they never asked any questions?
Not one. All my mother said after Pop died and our plumber had been coming around for a few years was, Moshe is a good man. He'll take care of you. You can't imagine how uncomfortable that made me feel.
Oh, yes. Yes, I can.
Yeah, I guess you
You call him Moshe.
I called him Mo. My Mo, when no one's around.
I always like the name Moses.
It has a very reassuring sound, doesn't it? Who's been reassuring to you, Gene?
Over the years, the usual collection of types.
Robbing any cradles?
Don't be ridiculous, Freddie. I may have been an adult molester in my youth, but I was certainly no fool when I became an adult. Kids never interested me.
They never interested in me either. Just you. You were lucky you didn't run into someone just like you when you grew up into an adult.
Oh, you were right. I was dangerous. Very dangerous. But a hell of a lot of fun.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Take care, Freddie. And tell Moses I said he's a lucky guy.
I will.
Scene 14.
The sound of that bell no longer heard. Now a button is pressed and a shrill electronic device summons the students into line. So very few will fall into line. Over the years, fewer and fewer of my generation would not digest the lies they told us. Attendance at Mass diminished, and the complexion of the student body became more, well, colorful. Oh, how they tried to prevent that from happening. Over the years, 48 of them, to be exact, before I learned that the poor, misguided Sister Regina Ange became the liaison between the Archdiocese and the real estate offices of all the white parishes. They worked very hard at acquiring all the houses they could, and they made sure that only the right people purchased or rented them. It wasn't souls they were interested in saving, it was real estate. Still, no one ever approached my mother's house. No one ever suggested that she move, and no one ever tortured her because of her past. And in her quiet, unassuming way, she came to her life, the end, with great dignity, knowing, though, that she may have been ahead of her time, that no one had the right to punish her for that. She won. And this roof over my head, this is what she worked so hard to keep for us. I am now protected by my mother's house.
The lights fade, and then play.
stay and give comments, we would love to hear them.
This is a perfect example of a SME reading that felt exactly like a full play.